Welcome back. Our session will now resume. Please come closer to the leaders' Majlis for the next session. I'll say it again. Welcome back. Our session will now resume. Please come closer to the leaders' Majlis for the next session. Our next session brings us closer to the reality of performance, what it takes to build, sustain, and grow from personal experience. Please join me in welcoming Mohammed, Rahma, covering the topic titled Most People Stop at No. At one no.
Hello? All right, it works now. So, thank you so much for the introduction and thanks for inviting me over here. I've been through the event itself, and I think this event is something that people should take advantage of because when we started our own businesses, we did not have exposure to such kind of things that actually can help and speed up things. Where today I'm here to relate off of personal story so then people can learn. And usually I always say this before I speak is saying is today you will listen to so many talking people, so many speakers, and you're going to be attending few kind of like workshops. The takeaway from this is not looking for an answer today, looking at what works for you. You take 5% from each speaker, you can take 10% from some of the workshop that you're attending, and then see what works for you. What works for me, 99% is not going to work for you, but you can take a lesson and then adapt your own kind of style into it. So let me start. So I started my life as a professional athlete, and today I have raised to build, and I've raised investment to build the biggest project I've ever built. And actually, my current company, we produce and manufacture beat sand. And I know it sounds very strange and weird because when we speak about people that this is my business, everybody have that question mark and saying, what does beat sand have to do with sports? Because I've always believed in once you follow your passion and once you follow your beliefs, then make this work for you and then start making money out of it. And now you're going to ask how a professional athlete build a business of a beach sand is related to sports. At the beginning, when I started, I played sport at the age of 8 years old, and I started playing football. And at the age of 18, nature made me stop. I had the disease called Crohn's disease, which made me stop playing football, and it was very severe. And at that time, I thought sport would have been my bread and butter, where I would make money, and I can see all the professional athletes making money, and I was growing into that kind of environment, and I thought that was it. Fast forward a few years later, being a professional athlete is not the only way to make money. And your passion, it doesn't mean that if, let's say, for example, I like drinking water, making water is going to be the one I build business around it, but it can be anything from printing labels and adding value to it. And this is where I reached after a while. So after football stopped, I was still persistent that saying, okay, I'm good at being an athlete. And I was pushing to become an athlete as an athlete itself and not looking at what's around, what's supporting athletes. So I started playing rugby. Did not make money. Rugby was definitely not the sport to make money. So my first venture of starting a business to make money from sport, I thought opening a federation or an association would have helped this, and I was very wrong. From the first, I built. It took me like 9 months to start the UAE Rugby Federation, and the first board meeting I was voted out. So again, I goes back into like, okay, I tried sport, football, and then disease stopped me from playing it. And now I started rugby. I opened the rugby federation, and then again, something forced me to go out. I did not stop there. I went and I started surfing. So surfing became my new passion and something that I really enjoyed. And I competed for the UAE national team internationally. And this is where things has actually opened up for me. And this is just me because I was persistent and focusing on playing a sport. But I never knew I would be sitting here today talking about beach sand, right? So when I started surfing, I again wanted to make money. In sports, to make money in sports or to make good money in sports, you have to be top 40. Otherwise, you don't make money. You're spending so much more money than you're actually gaining into it. So the first thing I did in the sport, I saw there was a gap in the market. Nobody have surfboards. Nobody was selling surfboards. So I opened a surf shop as my first kind of business. It did not go very well. I was not making money. I was not losing money. I was barely breaking even. And that was not what I wanted, right? I wanted to quit my job. I wanted to open a business, and I was definitely thinking the wrong way. So I qualified to play for the Surfing World Cup, and I got qualified in Peru. So I went there. When I came back, I saw so many people ask me, where do you go surfing? Where do you travel? So I thought it's an opportunity to open surf travel or a surf safari, we call it. And then I opened this and I started taking surf tours to Sri Lanka, to the Maldives, and slowly building that. But yet it was not making enough money because it was only me. And I realized that people are going to the surf trip is to surf with me. So I couldn't even hire people to do that. So, and I didn't have enough time to do this. So even that did not make money. And then I thought, you know what? We live in a country that has no waves. What is other alternatives to go surfing? And I saw people surfing behind the boat. We call it wake surfing. And I bought a boat and I opened a marine sports and still did not make money. So I thought, you know what? I need to get rid of it. So I combined all three businesses together and I sold the business with not much money, right? At least break even, retrieved my money back. Fast forward 2020, I was trying to qualify for the Olympics. At that time, I thought, what is the best way to do this? At that day, I thought my passion was a sport, but then I thought about it, but then my passion was to actually help people grow because I saw the joy I had when I was taking people on surf trips. So I thought high performance center, something we don't have in this country, something can actually elevate people, something that if I teach an athlete to become a high performer or a CEO or like even an entrepreneur to become a high performer, then that person can grow. That person can benefit his family, they can benefit their community. In my mind, sounded like an amazing idea. I spent 4 years studying, training in a high performance center, working as a part-time in a high performance center. I brought the idea here. I have met 327 different investors. Every single one of them said no to my idea. It was not easy. It is hard. We say this in a sport that 90% of kids stop playing a sport is not because they fail, is because of the drive back home with their parents. It's the way that they tell them how they did not perform very well. And that was what I felt, right? And I felt every time I'm pitching my passion, something that actually works, something we don't have in this country, something that we are struggling in this country, and yet at saying no. I never knew why. I never understood why. I never knew how to do it. And I kept persisting and I kept going. Sometimes God throws you a different path. In 2024, Abu Dhabi wanted to build a surf pool, and I got invited to become a consultant so I can bridge surfing with the UAE Emirati culture. I went for that meeting to become a consultant for that project. In the morning, they made me stay, because I'm from Dubai, so they made me stay in a hotel. In the morning, I had a breakfast with the CEO, and I said something out of a joke, right? Like I did not even mean it. I just wanted to joke around with the CEO. And I said, people paying 6,000 to stay at your hotel, and this is the beach sand you give them? Because I've traveled 73 different countries and I've surfed all those countries, and I can know a good beach sand from my feet and standing on it. I don't know biology, I don't study earth science, neither I studied none of those things. So I wouldn't know the chemical, whatever it is in it, but I know the feel of it. And then he said something that actually like sat with me, right? And he said, you know how expensive it is to actually refurbish this beach. We have no natural beaches in the UAE. It's all either dredged or from the mountains, or we buy it from outside, and it's very expensive. For me to fill up this beach, I would require at least 200,000 cubic meter. I don't know what cubic meter was at that time, by the way, right? Like I was, so, you know what I did? I was like, interesting. I actually asked the restaurant to give me a bag, and I filled the bag with the sand in from the beach, and I took it home. I don't know what to do with it. My wife goes, "What is this for?" And I was like, "I don't know yet, right? I know there is something in it." And then at that time, I was trying to qualify for the Olympics, for the Japan Olympics. I traveled all the countries. Every single country I travel with, I bring a sample of a beach with me on the airport. And I swear to God, until today, every single time I come into Abu Dhabi, I would get caught in the immigration saying like, "What is this?" I was like, "Beach sand." He's like, شو تسوي في هاكل هذا؟ ليش جايبنا معك? What is this for? I did not know what I wanted for. I honestly did not know why I was collecting beach sand. My wife goes crazy because our whole house is beach sand from all over the place.
You know what's funny? That's my life at home with my husband. It's filled with samples of beach sands. That's funny.
That's actually...
I'm firsthand going through that.
And then one day I got caught for military service, and I never was working. I never went to military service because I used to be country manager for one of the companies here overseas, so I was always abroad. My military service, because at that time I had some kind of illness, they put me alternative service, which is like grade 6 as they call it. They put me in the sugar factory. As soon as I walked in the sugar factory, I was like, what? This is what raw material of sugar looks like? It looks like sand, and then your end product is like crystallized, see-through, cubical sugar. I was the only Emirati in the national service that was actually taking notes and paying attention of how did this goes from here to there. And I would spend 2 hours after everybody leaves, and everybody was going like, what's wrong with this guy? I did my first sample, and it took me a year. I've tried so many different things, and I created that kind of, let's say, recipe, and I took that recipe to the laboratory. They confirmed it was good, and I took that sample, put it in the CEO's office, and I get a call next day saying like, where did you buy this from? And I was like, no, I can do it here. He's like, where did you do it? I was like, at home. And then he asked me a question, can you scale up? So I could not scale up. I do not have the money to build it. I'm not even close to having the money to build it. I go to the bank, they think I'm crazy. So I had to go back and then go 2 rounds again. And you know, when you start from zero, when you start from not even having that kind of connections, you look at your phone, it's like, all right, who do I call? How do we even start from here? And I did it one by one. I have met 737 different investors until the 738 said yes. A project that I had a signed contract for, nobody was still willing to invest. I never gave up. I started with not even knowing one investor. Slowly. I spoke to every friend I have, from my previous jobs to my friends in school to everybody. And then one by one would introduce me to one person. That one person introduced me to second person, third person, fourth person, 5th person. And I just kept repeating myself, going back and forth, until the number 600 something. And then I was like, okay, maybe I'm doing something wrong. And I met someone that actually genuinely helped me, and I will never forget this. And he said, what's wrong with my pitch? He said, today you're asking me to invest in one person. You have all the information, you have all the data. What happens tomorrow if something happens to you? What happens to my investment? It goes with you. I was like, all right, makes sense. And then I started having a partner with me, because I believe life is a team sport, right? What I'm not good at, XYZ is good at. What he's not good at this, the other person. So then I said, all right, I'm not good at finance. I'll hire someone in finance. I will give him a little bit of what I know. And then I know I'm not good at operation. I hired someone from operation. And not even hired. I didn't have money to hire. So I said, I'll give you 2% of the company, 1% of the company. And then I start having people in place. So now when I go to a meeting, we are a group of 4. We're not individual. Slowly taking attraction. Next problem we had is when I spoke to him, I was like, it didn't work. And then he was like, because right now you are too small for the big investors. You are too risky for the small investors. What do you do? How do you close that gap? How do you do this? And then it was no answer for this. The only answer for this is we meet a crazy investor that's willing to risk it or take a risk. And we finally met one. And now today, we're having a beach sand, a company that actually can scale up to become an exporting out of the UAE, a company not just to serve the UAE beaches, but then also to expand and then go internationally. We're doing something that's never been done before, something that's out of this, that even though it sounded good on paper, yet we did not have that kind of things. And we're speaking today is because today events like this, they listen. And today, even if they listen and say no, you need to ask why. You need to start learning from the mistakes. Don't do what I did. Today, the hardest part is hearing the word no. No shuts everything and breaks everything. It makes you feel less of who you are. Because you have to remember something. This is your passion. This is your future. The investors, events like these, speakers like us, we are just a tool to help you to achieve what you want to do. Once you believe in it, once you see it in your dreams, once you see it in your mind, it can be done. Never give up. It happens. Again, as I said, for me, it's not because I'm good at it. It just came to me, and it's just because I was very cautious what's what around. And we never said no. Whatever they say no, after a while, for me, them saying no, it just felt like, because I got used to it now. Now, when someone says yes, I was like, Wallah? What? What? Seriously? I had to call my wife that day. I was like, they said yes. There has to be something wrong with this, right? It got to that level that I was starting to question why they said yes. And then my wife keeps touching me like, la, it's a really good idea. They believed in you. I could not sleep for like 2 weeks because I was like, what do they have hidden agenda? Why they said yes? It has to be something different. It got to that level where that it hits my insecurity, right? It's like, And then you start doubting what you do, start doubting your project. And this happens. This happens. Again, today we speak is not to show you, give you the key of how it's done. Today you have to adapt your own. Today everybody of us have a different kind of style. Today we kind of like give you a hope, because before, even when I go to listen to speakers or like read books, I was doing it for the wrong reason, because I was looking for an answer. But it was not the answer. It was taking 1% from each person, 5% from each book, and then adapt and then start trying. Try one way, fail. Try another way, fail. Because you will only know what works for you is when you try.
To you, Muhammad, what kept you going? You said from 2020, you've been going, maybe even way before that. What pushed you to continue trying? Because at the end of the day, if I see that every way that I'm trying to push and it's nothing is going, like I'm not receiving anything, then I just give up.
Yeah.
And maybe try something new later.
99% would do this.
What keeps you going?
I believed in it. I believed in it and I believed in myself. I would literally, every time it says no, I would have a conversation to myself.
Do you have a support system at home?
I have my wife with me, and she's being one of the most supportive person. I would go home broken. I should go, let's try again.
So having a support system
Of
is
course,
number one.
1000%. And this support system can be any one of yourself, right? Have people around you. Have people who tells you in your face. Have those people that challenges you. Have those people that will actually, and this can be any one of yours, right? Your friends. When I started, this is, I don't know whether this is a men thing or this is a me thing, but I never opened up. I would have never opened up. I would always keep it in. I would always leave it
men
in.
thing.
Okay, then that's a men thing. It took time, right? My wife would try it out of me. She would ask me the same question 70,000 times, like, what's wrong? How is it? And then you will have that slowly. And then she would ask, how does that feel? Then when you start reflecting back to your life, because now I speak, I reflect back to my life. I reflect what I've done. How many of you today reflect of how things, the good things that they've done and how they have improved? I would bet a lot of people don't do this. Today, if you look at it, how you started to where you are today, there is always that improvement. And this improvement, once you see it in yourself, that's the encouragement for you to go. Because today, when you go back, say like, oh, I met this investor, but this time was different. This time was a little bit of like, and it was back and forth. Then you're like, oh, okay. So it was an attraction, but it was the wrong person. And then you go meet someone else. And then I was like, you learn something. And then you're like, okay, maybe I did not get it, but I learned one out of times. And then you just keep going. Once you reflect back to where you started, to where you are, because today you are what you wished for when you were at that time in those few years before and then before. But then how would you know it? Unless if you reflect back or you have someone to speak to. Today, psychologists, people think psychology only for people having problems, having like depression people, emotional people. But no, today you have psychology for business. Today you have psychology for high performance. Today you have what they call them, like life coaches, and all of these guys are here to add value, because these are the people that will get the best out of you and will tell you where you are and how it's gone. So use those for growth and use this for performance. When we looked at high performance center, one of the pillars and one of the most important things for athletes was psychologists, sports psychologists, because sports psychologists are the ones that actually show you, tell you who you really are, shows you the truth of who you are, and that person lets you open up.
Before we wrap up the conversation, what is the most important skill in your own personal life and your own experience that you would want to share with the audience here?
Believe in yourself. Again, this is your vision, this is your life. Nobody cares except for you. Fight for it.
Anyone has any question for Mohammed before we end this conversation? Thank you, Mohammed. It was a very inspiring conversation. Thank you for coming here today.
No worries, my pleasure.
And I'm really glad to have this conversation with you personally as well. And we'll go now for a short break. And hopefully I'll see you back at 2 p.m. Thank you, everyone.